All right, today we're going to solve by substitution. Yesterday we solved the system of equations by graphing system of equations, just two or more equations, and the solution was where they crossed. Well, sometimes you don't always get to graph it. Yesterday you just had to graph it, and where they crossed, that was it. Sometimes you don't get to do that, and so instead we've come up with what's called substitution. And here are the steps to solve by substitution. The first step is you solve for one variable. You get one variable by itself. Sometimes that'll be done for you today, but then sometimes it won't be. Then you are to substitute that variable into the other equation and then solve. And then you substitute that value, whatever you get there in step 2, you substitute that into either equation, doesn't matter which one, and solve for the other variable, which there's a lot of words. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but it will when we start doing it. So the first thing is solve for your variable, substitute it, and then once you solve for that, then you substitute again. So it's solve, substitute, right? Write this down. They give you this system of equations, this y equals 2x plus 1 and 3x plus y is equal to -9. They have already solved for y. Now, it doesn't matter which equation you pick to, if you solve for a variable which has already been done. If it's already been done, then I would not solve for x, I would just go with this. And what you do is you take it and you substitute it for y. Because y is equal to 2x, so I'm going to replace y with 2x plus 1. So 3x plus 2x plus 1, which is equal to -9. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to solve for x. The first step was solve for one variable. I solved for y. You substitute. Now we're going to solve for x. Or should I combine like terms first? And then solve for x by subtracting 1 to both sides and getting 5x is equal to -10. Divide by 5. X is -2. And that's part of my answer. That's half of my answer. Now I need the y. So what I do is I take -2 and I substitute it into either equation. Doesn't matter if you want to go y equals 2x plus 1 or 3x plus y equals -9. Doesn't matter. You're going to get the same number. I would choose the first one because it's already solved for y. So it's a whole lot easier. So that goes right there. 2 times -2 plus 1 gives you -3, right? I agree. -4 plus 1 is -3. So y is equal to -3. And then my answer, I just combine the two. Put them as an ordered pair. -2, -3. You can put them in parentheses, and there's your answer. Here, we don't have one of the equations that's already isolated. We don't have a variable that's already by itself. So we have to solve for one. It doesn't matter which equation you want to solve for x or solve for y. It doesn't matter. You get a lot of options here. You can solve for x on the first one. You can solve for x on the second one. Solve for y on the first one. You solve for y on the second one. Doesn't matter. Now, however, I would choose to solve for x on the first one because it's the easiest one to solve. And so what I do is I subtract 2y to both sides, and I rewrite it as x is equal to 6 minus 2y. And those are the two equations I'm going to work with. Now what I do after I've solved for x is I substitute. I replace x with 6 minus 2y. So I take 3 and I times it with x, which is 6 minus 2y. And then I'm going to subtract 4y, and that's going to be equal to 28. Again, make sure when you multiply, this is all times by x. So I have to distribute and do 3 times 6 and 3 times -2y. So 18 minus 6y minus 4y is equal to 28. Combine like terms. What's -6y and -4y? So 18 minus 10y is equal to 28. Subtract 18 to both sides. Subtract 18 to both sides. You get which I'll just write right here, negative 10y is equal to what? positive 10. Divide by negative 10. Y is what?
Negative 1.
Y is negative 1. So now, I've solved for one of the variables, I have to solve for the other, and I do that by substitution. So I take this, and I plug it into one of the original equations, which I'm going to plug it into the top one. You can plug it in this one, but I don't agree with it. I would stick with the original. It's much easier to, not necessarily easier, but you're more likely to get right. Because if you did something wrong here, right, and you plug it in, it's probably going to be right here, but it'd be wrong here. So make sure you go with the original. X plus 2 times negative 1 equals 6. So let's go with that here. 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. So I'm going to subtract 2 to both sides. X equals what? What's 6 minus 2?
4.
4. So now I just write my word pair. 4, negative 1. There's my answer. I just caught a mistake. Yeah. This 2 times negative 1 should have been negative 2, right? Which I wrote that, but then I didn't think about it. So this should have been x minus 2 is equal to 6. So I should have added 2 to both sides, which 6 plus 2 is 8. So my answer is 8. I apologize. Which I'm going to rewrite right down here. 8, negative 1 is my answer. So solving for x and y, it's nice. On this one, they've already solved for y, so I replace y with 2x minus 4. Don't forget to distribute the 3 out to 2x minus 4. That's where I find a lot of people make mistakes. So negative 6x plus 6x minus 12 is equal to negative 12. I add like terms, and they cancel each other out. So I've got negative 12 is equal to negative 12. Is that a true statement? Yes, since it's a true statement, you can write all numbers. The book, however, for this one, they like to write as infinite numbers, or infinite number, because it doesn't matter what x and y are, it's still going to be a true statement. Which, yeah, I don't care if you write that symbol, but make sure you understand what it means, and that's infinite. What this means is that both these lines are the same line, right? Remember the infinite number of solutions? Hey, there's not one solution because they're both the same line. If you were to graph both these, you would get the same line. So it doesn't matter what x you pick, the y is going to be the same. I mean, it's just they're gonna have the same solution for each line. All right, write this one. So I've got 2x minus y is equal to 8, and I've got y is equal to x minus 3. So replace y with 2x minus 3. Here, I find people make a mistake because they just plug in, they just write it like this, and that's not what you do. You actually treat this like that's negative 1y. So you would have to distribute negative 1 to both those. Really all you do is you just make 2x negative and you make 3 positive. You just change the sign of everything in the y. Okay. But some people will have a easier time remembering that you just times by negative 1. And we combine like terms, which gets rid of it. 3 equals 8. Is that a true statement? No, that's false. That means no solution. I don't care if you write the empty set for this one. What this means is that these lines are parallel, they never cross. It means there's not a solution. Here's your homework for today.